Welcome to the Bowden Blitz SEC Edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year Terry Bowden. Coach, week number 12 on the horizon. Two marquee games in the conference that'll separate the contenders from the pretenders as it relates to the college football playoff odds. We'll take a look at the SEC title odds entering this weekend. It's a new team every week. This week, it's Texas A&M, fresh off their road win last Saturday against Missouri, followed by Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas to round it out. Texas A&M early on, Coach, looks like the team to beat. They're playing with house money entering week number 12.
Yeah, I mean, now that we get towards the end of the season and we've had a chance to watch them week in and week out, when they play bad, when they play good, when they depend on their defense, when they're depending on their offense, and nothing has diminished my feelings that Texas A&M is going to get through the conference and play in the SEC championship. They pretty much can lock up this weekend. I think with a win this weekend, they'll lock up a playoff spot. And as they get to the end of the game, they've got Texas at the end. Georgia has Texas at the beginning. Alabama's got to knock off Oklahoma this morning. So this weekend. So we've got some key games, but I think when it comes down to it, I think Alabama and A&M are going to be the two teams that end up in the conference championship, but that's not going to hurt Georgia, their chance of getting in, and probably Ole Miss after that, depending on what happens with Oklahoma.
It's going to be interesting because we talk about the team that's in the perfect spot entering week number 12. You see them there at 11-1 with the Ole Miss Rebels. All of their difficult games are already behind them. They do have the Egg Bowl on the horizon. But, Coach, they could basically be an at-large team and not really even have to play in a conference championship because Georgia does have the head-to-head over them. I think when you look at the top five teams right now, yes, it's Texas A&M. They're an 18.5-point home favorite this weekend against South Carolina. South Carolina could be without their starting quarterback, Lenore Sellers, right. So that's a benefit to the Aggies in this matchup. But if Georgia picks up the win, I do, in fact, believe it will be somehow, some way, A&M and Georgia potentially battling it out. We'll get into our picks for this weekend. But, you know, Georgia is playing very good. And that rushing attack is going well now. Defensively, they've been opportunistic. They got a gutty road win in dominating fashion over Miss State. They just seem like a more complete team at the end of the regular season than they did, let's say, in week 3 or 4.
No, I agree with you there. I think Georgia is playing their best football, but the fact is they lost their head-to-head against Alabama, and if Alabama can knock off Oklahoma and beat a real down Auburn team to final season, then it will be Alabama in the conference championship playing against Texas A&M. Does that hurt Georgia? Not at all. They might not get a first-round bye under that circumstance, but they'll be in there playing one of the lower-level teams in their first round at home. If that happens, still too many games out there. Texas has got a couple of them. Oklahoma isn't totally out of this thing yet. And Alabama's got to come out there and beat Oklahoma this weekend. So we've got some good games coming up. And there's still some games that will decide what's going to happen. But when it comes down to it, I still got Alabama and Oklahoma and Alabama and Texas A&M being better than the people on their schedule towards the end of the season. And that would put them in the championship game because they're both undefeated in SEC play.
And to Coach's point, if you don't want to dive into the SEC championship odds, because maybe it is Alabama and A&M as the 1 and 2 top teams, the way to maybe play it is, in fact, tackling the college football playoff market, because we see Ole Miss and Georgia at the top. They're minus 2,500. The Rebels are minus 2,000 for the Bulldogs. You see Alabama, and then you have some positive prices. Oklahoma with a pretty good price at plus 225. Vanderbilt still alive at plus 290. If you like Oklahoma this weekend, Coach, well, maybe the plus 225 to make the college football playoff isn't a bad way to approach it, because they do have a down LSU team at the end of the regular season to close it out.
Well, I'm just not sure. I'm still kind of leaning toward Alabama in that Oklahoma ball game coming up this weekend. If that doesn't happen, it will change circumstances a good bit. But anyway, I do see it'll be interesting now going down the line if Oklahoma were to beat Alabama. And again, I do think the best bang for your buck is probably Georgia. To be honest with you, from all these SEC teams, they've got enough good. They're a good enough team to win it all, and yet they're still 5-1 odds or 5.5 with the odds. And I kind of like that.
Now we'll take a look at the updated national championship odds. To Coach's point, Georgia right now is 11-1 to win a national championship. You have Alabama at plus 950, A&M with the best price entering week number 12 plus 650, and then you have Oklahoma at 40-1, Vanderbilt at 100-1, and Ole Miss might be the best price, Coach. You're almost getting 20-1 with the Rebels. To your point, their tough games are behind them. They still have the Egg Bowl, but at the end of the day, we expect them to win out. Ole Miss at 19-1 isn't a bad number to potentially win a national championship.
Oh, I think it is. I think because they have a team that, when you look at how they play, they find a way to win. And if you went for the best bang for your buck, and again, when I was talking about Georgia, I was speaking about the conference championship. When you talk about 1,100, I still think Georgia's a nice get, probably a little better chance than Ole Miss. But if you're going to have some fun and you want to get a little chance to make some money, Ole Miss is a team that finds a way to win. They're going to get to the playoffs if they just get through these last two games, which I think they will. They're going to get to the playoffs, and then all you got to do is go out there and play 3 times. Every week is a national championship week.
Now, when you talk about these coaches, Lane Kiffin and some of the others, we saw Sark come out and talk about the coaches. How much pressure on Kiffin here? Because Kiffin makes it to the college football playoff. There's the potential he could stay in Oxford for the next 4 or 5 seasons and not potentially jump to the likes of Florida or LSU or maybe even the New York Giants, like some have said with his former quarterback, Jackson Dart. Are the coaching rumors potentially like pushing these coaches away from this weekend and distraction-wise? How do you feel that plays out?
I don't think anybody's had more experience at strange coaching decisions than Lane Kiffin from an early age on, whether it be the Raiders to the Southern Cal to Tennessee. I coached against him when he was FAU building his way back up. I think he's playing this thing out. He's enjoying it. I think he knows. Now, I will say this. He has coached long enough to know he can't afford to lose a game that he's supposed to win. And it ain't over till it's over. Because right now if you mess up right now, it messes up everything. But if you get you one more game, he's probably got his way into the playoffs. And then it's really you're playing with house money. When you're at Ole Miss and you're in the 12-team playoff, your fans are excited. They want to go all the way, but they've already done what few teams in the country can do, make the 12 top teams in the country. So I know he really needs to go out there and get that one more win, because I think that should put him in a situation where, regardless of what's happened in the Egg Bowl, I think with a couple of losses, he should be able to get in.
Coach, we talked about Texas not looking like the same team potentially last year and the year before where they made the college football playoff. You see their odds at 33-1. If they were to pick up this victory this weekend against Georgia, are we still buying in big picture to Texas? Could they potentially make a run at a national championship?
I have mixed emotions. One, they have the talent level on their team to go out there on any given Saturday and play head-to-head with anybody. Remember, they lost to Ohio State 14-7, and that was the number one. Everybody knows that's the number one, or feels that's the number one team in the country. And so Texas has the talent. I'm not convinced yet that Texas plays their best football game on the road or in the big games. I just see them not coming through. They're not committed enough to the running game. Arch Manning is doing a great job, but the more pressure you put on him, I think he plays less with big people, with big games. You give him a chance to have some cushion, plenty of places to throw the football. He has great numbers, but I think the bigger the game, the more Texas is at a disadvantage.
When Coach and I return, we'll dive into the 2 biggest games within the SEC, Oklahoma, Alabama, and we'll talk about Georgia, Texas. Coming right back. back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down Week 12 in the SEC. No bigger game than at 3:30 Eastern Time in Tuscaloosa. It's top-ranked Alabama and Oklahoma battling it out. Alabama opened as a 6.5-point home favorite. We're seeing 5.5s creep into the market. Oklahoma fighting for their college football playoff lives, Coach. They won this matchup last year in Norman, shut down Jalen Milroe, and the Alabama offense dominated that game as a 14.5-point home dog. They won it 24-3. They held the Crimson Tide without a touchdown. Can they do it again on the road in Tuscaloosa?
I think it's a different team. I think Alabama has got a lot of confidence right now. Their quarterback is a different type of quarterback, but I think he's a winner. I think he's a pocket passer who understands football, got a great football IQ. Dad's the head coach of UT Martin, been around it all his life. I really like their quarterback. They are a one-dimensional team. And I think Venables can usually handle a one-dimension team, except that I think Oklahoma's kind of a one-dimensional offense as well. So it's going to be a battle of who can put the best numbers up there on offense. That's why I just think Alabama will be able to do a little bit more offensively than Oklahoma will do. But as I've said all week or all 3 weeks, Alabama somewhere is going to exit the playoffs early because they can't run the football. What's about 213 a game, $113 a game they're doing right now, and they may be able to pull this one off. But I'm going to tell you, if they lose to Oklahoma, it'll be because they are a one-dimensional team, and Venables was able to focus on getting to that quarterback.
Well, two things. To your point about, their inefficiency running the football, Alabama has one of the worst rushing outputs prior to 2016, averaging around 111 yards per game, only about 3.4 yards per carry. Jam Miller, their leading rusher, only has about 340 rushing yards on the year. We think about the dominance of Alabama running backs in recent years, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and some of the greats, right? They were able to ground and pound with the best of them. And when you look at the front seven for Oklahoma, Coach, 82 rushing yards allowed, one of the best rush defenses in the conference, holding opposing offenses to only 2.4 yards per carry. They've only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. And, Coach, they're coming out of a bye week. How important is that for Oklahoma and the defense of Brent Venables going on the road?
Well, I don't think there's anybody better than Brent Venables. I know I was an analyst at Clemson when he was there, and I watched him at work, and he will leave no stone unturned in breaking down the tendencies of Alabama and what they like to do. And what Brent Venables is very good at, he has a different blitz for every game. What you saw last week, he will not come at you this week. He'll find a way to get to that quarterback. So, again, he's got an extra week. You'll see some wrinkles. It may be a slow start for Alabama, but Ty Simpson is a smart guy. He's got a great IQ, great football IQ. He's got great wideouts. And as long as he's getting rid of that ball early in the game, he's got to get the ball out of his hands. If he'll do that, the offensive line will gradually get used to seeing what they're coming at him with. And I just think Ty Simpson does not turn the ball over. That's the one thing. If he were to continue to do what he's doing, not turn the ball over, and he's got 2 great wide receivers that are going to make plays, they'll make just enough plays to get about a 7-point lead in that game and hold on to it. But it's going to be without them running the football. I tell you, it wouldn't shock me if Venables shut them down.
I like Oklahoma in the matchup. I'm calling for the upset. I'll take the 5.5. I'll take the 172 on the money line. Backs against the wall. They were able to get the victory a couple weeks ago against Tennessee. We'll see if they could do it. 3:30 Eastern Time in Tuscaloosa. The other matchup is a 7:30 kick in Athens. These teams met 2 times last year. Georgia got the whole road win in Austin, 30-15, and then won the SEC championship. Coach, they're playing very good right now. They rushed for well over 300 yards against Miss State. Nate Frazier with a breakout performance, over 140 yards on the ground. The defense was opportunistic, wins it. They won it by 20 points against Miss State last week as an 8.5-point road favorite. They're laying 5.5 against Texas. I think if both teams bring their A game, it might be close for a half. But give me the Bulldogs. I think they win this game by double digits.
Well, that's what they've done all year. They've just pulled away. They play tough football. They'll pound the ball, run the football, maybe not get ahead much by halftime, if ahead at all, and they'll pull away. Arch Manning's had two of his biggest games the last two games. He's had his best yardage-wise passing the ball. He's had his best games. But Kirby Smart, one, playing in Athens, two, those are two huge factors because under Sarkisian, I don't think they play as well on the road, and I don't think they play as well in big games because of their lack of commitment to the running game. When it gets tight and the pressure gets on, he goes to the pass too soon. Too much pass, and you got to be willing to what Roger running tack into the second half. I think that's what Georgia does, and that's what gets them to victory.
And to your point about Texas, you look at last year, they averaged around 158 yards on the ground. They've had a very inconsistent rushing attack this year, well under 150 yards entering this matchup, well under 4 yards per carry as a team as well, which puts you in long third down situations. And you could go to big games all of last year, the two most important games for Texas down the stretch. Last year against Arizona State, where they got forced into overtime, they only pounded the rock, coach, for 1.7 yards per rush. Against Ohio State in the semifinal playoff loss, they only pounded the rock for 1.3 yards per carry. They're going to need a better effort on Saturday. And to me, that's the difference. They're going to need to convert potentially over 45% on third downs to maybe win this game. I just don't see it happening on the road. They've been too inconsistent in big matchups.
Well, the one concern that you have, Georgia has not been real good pressuring the quarterback, but they're getting better. The last couple of games, they much improved that part of their ball game. I think that's because they know they've had to improve that. And so, again, as we go toward the end of the season and you watch the body of work that Georgia has done, they've corrected those little things. And, of course, last week they just took off against Mississippi State and just crushed Mississippi State. They'll be a hard team for Texas to keep up with in Athens between the hedges.
We'll see exactly how it plays out. To Coach's point, Georgia has only recorded 11 sacks on the year. 3 of them came last week against Mississippi State. They bring that type of effort on Saturday night. Georgia should win the matchup. When we return, we'll talk about the remaining 2 games, top 25 battles coming up right here on the Bowden Blitz. Keep it where it is. All right, wrapping up the Bowden Blitz. 2 big games left on the slate in the conference. We'll take a look at top-ranked Texas A&M squaring off against South Carolina. Last year, A&M went on the road to Williams-Brice as a 2.5-point road favorite. They came out with a 44-20 loss to the hands of Lenora Sellers and the Gamecocks. They got dominated on the ground, coach, by the Gamecocks rushing attack. Now Lenora Sellers potentially out. He's looking to transfer maybe to another school like Miami. So new starting quarterback for the Gamecocks coming out of a bye week off a 4-game losing streak. I don't know if they win, coach, but 18.5, 19 points, knowing the gauntlet that Texas A&M has had, there's no doubt the Aggies win at home in Kyle Field, but I'm going to take the dog with the points in this matchup.
Yeah, I have a tough on this one. When the points get that high against a team that's always played good football, but I'm gonna go with Texas A&M for a couple of reasons. One, not only is Lenore's pretty much gone. The word is he's in the portal. He's not going to play anymore. He's looking for a no home. They fire their offensive coordinator. They fire their offensive line coach. You got you don't know who's calling the shots here. I don't know how you do all that and still have somebody out there working on the game plan like you'd like to have it. So my concern there is I'm not sure South Carolina is going to have to put a lot of points, going to be able to put a lot of points on the board at all. Without Lenora Sellers, I don't know if they put any points on the wall. And then all of a sudden, 19 points isn't that much, if you're not scoring at all on offense. But that's a lot of points. Normally I wouldn't like it, but with all the people they've changed, with the quarterback deciding he wants to pull out and jump into the portal, I don't know that plan B at South Carolina is all that close to Texas A&M.
Do you think that Beamer stays in Columbia with the Gamecocks, knowing potentially that writing is on the wall? He hasn't lived up to expectations. Big picture, he's been inconsistent. 1 year up, 1 year down. Their win total this year was 8.5. He had one of the best quarterbacks from the Heisman odds perspective in the offseason, with Sellers having basically a top 10 price. Thoughts about Beamer? Does he potentially move on, going back to his dad's alma mater, Virginia Tech, looking for a new head coach?
He's got a dose of reality is what he's got. I've coached in the SEC, and in the SEC, over the years, South Carolina has not been a program you can build a winner consistently. It just does not consistently compete for championships in the SEC. Virginia Tech has had a lot of years under Beamer's dad, as successful as he was. I think, and now at the end of the season, if it doesn't get too ugly, I would be looking at Virginia Tech, because there's such a loyalty to his name and his family. That is a place in the ACC where you can have a little more success, or the pressure is not on as much there. And so, although I would say, okay, which one's a better job? Theoretically, South Carolina in the SEC, but longevity, comfort, family feel-good type of atmosphere, Virginia Tech's probably looking a lot better right now.
Oh, we'll see. The other game is a rivalry game with two teams at the bottom now of the conference odds. We look at Arkansas winless in the SEC this year. They're coming out of a bye week, 0-5 in conference play. They're 2-7 overall. And LSU, off their disappointing road loss at the hands of Alabama, they lost it by 11 and didn't cover the 10.5-point number. We know about Michael Van Buren getting the start. He's burning his red shirt for LSU. I mean, what do we expect out of both of these teams? It's not a late-night kick in Baton Rouge, 12:45 Eastern time. I lean to the over. I think we could get points 56.5 with Taylon Green and the explosiveness of Arkansas.
Well, I think I like that, because LSU has said, let's go out, let's throw caution to the wind. Let's get a dual threat quarterback. Let's change what we're doing and do something else. That could give them a burst, because when you lose your coach, the further you get away from that coaching change, the more your kids lose. And after we see what has happened to Lenore Sellers, we have to wonder how many players on those two teams are already being contacted, and they're telling these kids, don't get hurt. Be careful out there. If you have a little bummed up, get yourself off the field. All these things start to come into play. But I do like the fact that LSU has said, let's go out there, put the other quarterback in, give him a shot. You can always go back to the other quarterback if he doesn't play well, but it gives you a dual threat. It gives you a chance to go out there and match points. So, again, two teams that don't have a bright future this year, but I think this ought to be a pretty fun game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the one thing you could say about Arkansas is they haven't won in conference, but they went toe-to-toe with some of the best teams, lost by one score to Ole Miss, lost by 3 to both Tennessee and A&M. They could be live this coming Saturday. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the games.